and welcome to another episode of the Heart of CX. I'm Joanna Palmer, and with me is Max Ball. Hey, Max, how's it going today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Joanna?
I am doing well.
Good. Hey, I was thinking we should talk about digital today. And I
Yeah.
was thinking, I remember you had a story about your life pre-digital. And I was thinking that might be a great tee up to having this conversation if you were to kind of walk through life in a voice only world.
Life in a voice-only world. Uh, so this story is back in the 90s, back when
Way
video
back.
killed the radio star. Uh, or was that the 80s that video
That
killed the
was
radio
probably man.
star?
It was still killing it in the 80s, in the 90s.
That's right. That's right. You're welcome that song is now going through your head.
Yeah.
Um,
How did you know?
but this story is back in the 90s, and it's when I was an exchange student in Australia. And this is one of those earliest memories I have of really customer experience and the emotion around that customer experience. That emotion here over 20 years ago is still just as raw as it was back then.
Oh,
And it
this must
was
have been traumatic.
right. So let's just get started. So this story was with an airline in Australia, and they had run a promotion on, hey, buy a voucher and book your travel at a later date. And it was a great deal. And so I jumped on it because, of course, as part of being an exchange student, I wanted to explore the country. I didn't know exactly where or when I was going, but I knew I wanted to go and travel and explore. And so I went ahead
Right.
and purchased
And you're a
this
student. This is
voucher.
a way to get something cheap. Go for it. Yeah, that's the only way you're going to get to
Exactly.
travel. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And so a couple months later, I was ready to book that. Myself and another exchange student decided we wanted to go see Ayers Rock. And so we had mapped out a 5-day trip with tours to Ayers Rock, the Olgas, some other sites there. And so
Hmm.
totally excited about this trip. And of course, I had the voucher, which was going to make it an economical trip. So I call the airline and attempt to book the ticket, only to be told that this destination was not eligible for this promotion.
Oh,
And I know, I know.
ooh.
Oh, the things I wish I could tell my 17-year-old self now, because at that point I had a breakdown. This seemed like the biggest issue of my 17-year lifespan at that point. And I remember hanging up with customer service completely defeated, deflated, and
Hmm.
getting out my calling card. Gotta love the
Oh,
90s.
there you go. We are in the 90s,
And
isn't it?
calling my parents. Yes, yes. And so I am just an emotional wreck calling my parents, just completely deflated, defeated, and just beside myself that how could this happen? And of course, them being my parents, use it as a coaching moment. Hey, this isn't the end of the world. Think about what you can do. What are your options here? Let's think about this practically and logically at that point. I'm all emotions. I don't want to think practically or logically. Um, but we talked through a plan, which included calling back customer service and escalating the issue. So I
There you
ended up
go.
pulling myself together, or so I thought, and calling back customer service. And I'm in asking for that supervisor or manager and being connected. And I think at that point I lost it again and became that emotional wreck again, crying to the supervisor about, how this was imperative that I was able to book this travel and that this was, that the voucher is what I purchased and there was no fine print that I could see that this would be excluded, yada, yada, yada. So the good news is that I was able to go on the trip, that the voucher was honored. They made an exception. I
Oh,
was
good
able
for
to go
you.
on the trip and go to Ayers Rock. So yes, yes. But the emotion tied to that still is raw and just very top of mind as I think about this. I couldn't remember the airline unless I went back to my scrapbook, but I sure remember the emotion tied to that.
Yeah. And
And
I guess if I'm that airline, I'm glad to know that you forgot my name,
right,
because the last thing I want for my brand is 20 years later, oh, those guys. Ugh.
right, right, right. And thinking about this 20 years later, my daughter's the same age that I was as an exchange student. She's finishing her senior year of high school. And I think about what would it be like for her to deal with customer
Mm.
service these days. And it's interesting. Phone call into customer service, the whole scenario wouldn't happen like it happened back then in the 90s. So
Yeah, you're
thinking
right.
about
You're right.
yeah, so thinking about purchasing the voucher, that would all be done online or in app. Thinking about booking the travel, that would be all done online or in app. And then escalating to customer service once you got that error that you weren't able to book would be done in app messaging, chat, even social media. Like I could see her going on Twitter and messaging about the scenario, the one to many, so that the world could
I
see.
mean, instead of calling back the supervisor, or instead of pulling out her phone card and calling you, and I bet half the audience doesn't even know what we're talking about when we talk about this. Um, she she would have she might have faced that. She also could have just gone on Twitter and said, "I'm so mad at blah blah blah," and that a appropriate proactive company would then be reaching out to her saying, what can we do about this, and getting her through it. And yeah, this is a really rich. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, so I guess the good scenario, if she put that out on social media, they could have responded, said, "Hey, let's talk about this." I think we talked last time, and then at the end, make sure that the company's putting out a Joanna's daughter. I'm so glad we got you to Ayers Rock. Be sure to post some pictures when you go, and who knows,
Right.
maybe she's happy enough to do that.
Yes.
And yeah, what
Yes.
a different
It is.
world.
It is. And thinking about all of the various different channels that are at our fingertips these days, and thinking about it may not just be one channel that you're interacting with. So it may start on chat, it may start with messaging. You don't get the channel or the response you like, it escalates. And that's the way that the world is working these days. And COVID's just accelerated that much further. Um, McKinsey actually came out with a statistic that the percentage of digital customer interactions before COVID was 36%, so less than half. And during COVID, we're now at 58%. The majority of
Wow, so
customer
it's over
interactions
half.
are digital.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
that's
And so adoption's accelerated during this time. And I don't think we're going to see the pendulum swing back.
So one of the points you made that I kind of wanted to drill down for a minute was, all these different channels, and you know, uh, as customers, we're going to try to game it. I like your daughter going out on social. She knows that social media, that's a megaphone, and that's an important one. And if you have different groups, if you have somebody doing social customer service and somebody doing messaging and somebody doing voice, customers are going to figure that out. They're going to game you. They're going to figure out which channel they get the best deal on, and that's where they're going to go. And that is
Right.
not how you want to drive your traffic, right? You want to drive your traffic based on, well, really the most convenience, not this sense that I'm going to get a better deal doing X or Y.
Right, right. And I think the challenge today too is that the social platform is always changing. It may be Twitter today, Snapchat tomorrow, and who knows what the next day. I mean, heck,
Right.
Clubhouse just came out, which is a
Yeah,
whole new platform.
yeah.
And
I really, the biggest social media channel of 2025 is probably today, Two Guys in a Garage.
Right. Right. That's brilliant because it really probably is. We don't know what's going to
Right. We don't
happen
know
to.
what's out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so just how quickly things have accelerated from just a constant development perspective. And I think it really started with the onset of the internet and then the iPhone and then social media. And it's just continued to snowball. And then COVID hit and it's gone faster and faster. And so you can't afford to play catch up, right?
No, not at all.
You've
Not at
got
all.
to you've got to have a platform that's going to grow with you and that is focused on evolving with whatever the next trend is. I think that that's so critical.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, how do you get to the point of, if there's still a lot of contact centers out there that are voice or maybe email and chat, and
Mhm.
what, how do you, how do you know where your customers are, and B, once you do that, how do you roll that out to them? How do you meet them where they are?
Oh gosh, that's that's a great question, Max.
It's kind
And
of
so
a massive one, but
that is a massive one. How do you know where they are? Customers prefer digital interactions, e-commerce interactions. More than likely, your customers are on mobile, are online. That's what we're seeing. And so with this, the first thing is taking a look at omni-channel and setting yourself up for success by leveraging an omni-channel platform that can handle all the
right. So
context,
you don't
irregardless
you
of
don't need
channel.
to be thinking channel to channel. You just need to be thinking, here's my agent experience. How do I give the best digital experience? And hopefully
Exactly.
something either through CRM or preferably through the digital platform that can give you the history, and you can see not just this interaction, but what did they do on Twitter last week and what did they do
Exactly.
across all the channels.
Yes.
And it you can't say, oh, a customer is going to prefer this channel, because my channel of preference changes based on what I'm doing. If I'm in your mobile app, that's my channel of preference. If
Right.
I am on your website, I want to do web chat. If I'm in the car, I'm going to call.
Yeah.
There's all these different flavors. Uh, I heard a conversation the other day. Someone was talking about, um, for gamers, PS2 is the platform of choice. The
Interesting.
why not open that up? It's got all the communications in the universe, and it's got, you know there's some chat tools that are inherent in that. If I'm Sony or if I'm Nintendo and I'm supporting somebody with one of my games, why wouldn't I just make that part of the game experience directly?
Right. Right. That's brilliant. Just keep your customers in whatever channel that is, making them move from whatever experience they're in to a different channel's unnatural and creates friction. It detracts from that customer experience. And so as you think about deploying your strategy, first you've got to figure out what your customer experience vision is. And to help with that, you need to take a look at your corporate strategy, your corporate vision, and how the two tie together. Once you've got that determined, then it's really starting to roll the channels out, and you can start taking a look at where your customers are more of your customers online, or within your mobile app, or on your
Right.
PS2. And that's how you start prioritizing what channel to introduce when. Um, and then, like you mentioned, it's listening to the customer, listening to that voice of the customer, and ensuring that you're optimizing whatever channel that is. So, see what that customer sentiment is. And you can tie that to each channel. So, a customer on average communicates three or more channels to interact with a company. So as you start taking a look at customer sentiment for the same customer, you may see variations in the channels. And so you can drill into that and start to understand why some channels are correlated with higher customer sentiment than other channels and start tuning uh,
Yeah, yeah.
your
Or I guess you could get to a point where you say, you know what, this channel doesn't work for my customers. We don't ever get good results with it. We're just not going to do it. If
yeah,
you do this one, I'm going to defer to another one. Yeah, because there
yeah.
will be situations like that.
And that's a great point. It's all about experimenting, failing fast, and adjusting. And you learn just as much on failing fast and adjusting quickly as you do spending you probably learn more doing it that way than spending time on trying to get it right the first time.
I I think you just hit a perfect close for this discussion. I think that the experimentation. I love that approach. I love that thought process. I think that's the right way to be thinking about digital is, put it out there, raise the flag, see who salutes instead of, and I think that really drives the need for a flexible digital platform that
Yes.
gives you the chance to, because once you have that, the experimentation's easy. You're not hiring somebody and having them spend all day in the platform. You're just connecting to that platform, and the agent experience is the same across all the platforms. So I,
Right.
I think that's great. Thank you, Joanna. I learned a lot talking to you, as I always do, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Max. It's been fun. Let's do it again next week.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks.
All right.